Republican response to the Democrats' self-executing plan, or the possibility of that for health care. Congressman Paul Broun joins us from Capitol Hill. Congressman, good to have you on.
Thanks, Connell. Glad to be here.
All right. So this self-executing plan is essentially a procedural measure that might be considered by the Democrats that might push health care through without, once again, voting on the full bill on the House floor. What's the reaction, do you think, from something like that if it happens?
Well, Connell, this is a betrayal by Nancy Pelosi of the American people. It's a betrayal of our own party and a betrayal of the U.S. Constitution. In Article 1, Section 7, the second paragraph says that any law that is put into place has to be passed by the House and the Senate, signed by the President.
Okay, well, we can talk about the specifics of that, but let me just stop for 1 second, because in fairness, this measure has been used in the past, including when the Republicans were in power and they controlled the Congress, as we talked about earlier, maybe not on something this big, but this particular procedural measure, like almost all procedural measures, has been used before.
Well, I don't know of any time that they have deemed something that has been passed that has never been voted upon. We've seen reconciliation used, certainly, but that's not to put in place new policy. And in fact, the reconciliation is not going to fix the things that the Democrats are being promised. For instance, it will not fix taxpayer-funded abortions. Nancy Pelosi is just showing her arrogance and her ignorance and her incompetence in pushing forward something that the American people have rejected. And the American people need to stand up and say no to this takeover of healthcare system.
Well, they have a chance to do that, certainly, in the midterm elections in November, which is what's leading up to all this. I would assume the Democratic argument, and some of the Democrats that we've talked to, is that once you pass it, and they say the polls prove this, once you pass it in terms of the specifics, people will then like what they have, that it's just all the lead up to it and all the talk that's turning people off. What do you say to that?
Oh, that's absolutely wrong. That's the kind of talk that Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama are trying to sell to their own people. They're buying their folks off. You're going to see in whatever omnibus budget bill we see come forth from the House, you're going to see how Nancy Pelosi is trying to buy people's votes.
Right.
But she's betraying the American people. 3/4 of America do not want this bill. They want to either start all over again or do nothing. Now, the Republicans want to do something. We want to lower the cost, but Nancy Pelosi is showing her ignorance because she's pushing forth a bill that will increase everybody's health care costs. It will put a Washington bureaucrat in charge of making all health care decisions for everybody, even those that have private insurance. She's showing her incompetence by getting rid of all the rules that stand in the way of this radical agenda of a government takeover of health care.
Well, this whole idea,
the American people understand what's going on.
Let's talk about some of this on the merits in terms of the cost issue that you brought up a moment ago. The last time we saw these bills work through the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, the conclusion was they would lower the deficit by whatever it was, somewhere around $100 billion over the course of 10 years. We don't have the current score on this one, as Rich Edson, our reporter, pointed out, because we don't have a bill yet. But you know, assuming it's somewhere in that neighborhood, that would lower costs, right? Not push it up.
Zombie economics that they're pushing, you've got to be a dead man walking around with no soul to believe the economic parameters that Nancy Pelosi's given to them. What they do is they give 6 years worth of benefits, but 10 years worth of tax increases and cuts to Medicare, and it's just hocus pocus.
So you don't believe the assumptions?
It's not going to be.
You think there's way too many assumptions being made, and it's just not true what the CBO came out with. Is your take on that?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
That said, from where you sit,
the CBO.
No, I was just going to say, from where you sit on the Republican side of the aisle, all of these things said, are you resigned to the fact that something is going to pass here at this point, or will it be stopped?
Well, I think it'll be stopped, because as soon as they have the votes, we'll have a vote on the floor of the U.S. House. They don't have them yet. The American people are speaking loudly. They do not want this Senate bill passed.
Right.
And Nancy Pelosi's not listening to them, but hopefully a lot of Democrats will listen to their constituents. Hopefully their constituents will call, write, visit, fax, email their member of Congress and say no. Most Americans don't want this, and the American people are speaking loudly, and hopefully the Democratic rank and file here in the House will listen to their constituents.
All right, Congressman Paul Broun, we thank you for your time today. Thanks for coming on with us.
Thank you.
Out of D.C., Republican from